I'm like, seriously? I can't handle what we're about to talk about. I actually was just reflecting on that, Solara. I was like, it's a universal sign that maybe we're too soon. Maybe people aren't ready to hear what we have to say.
Oh, for goodness. I actually have had that expressed to me by many different beings along so I've been working in the quantum mainframe. I'm like, all right, I'm just going into the avatar, They're like, you're where you need to be. People aren't fully ready to receive this, which is actually a beautiful, the inward, right? This is an invitation and a nudge, a push, a swift kick into the internal realms. Depending where we are in our journey, that's really what's unfolding right now. It's like, are we listening to our internal guidance system? Is our primary priority the connection to our sovereign self? Are we going into those places and spaces as called, or are we being given a nudge to go to a new depth of self-discovery? Because I feel like this is a potent, powerful time for awakening in a depth of self-discovery, really having the consciousness and the higher mind, the quantum mind, our genius, revealed to us so that we become fully illumined and aware of who and what we truly are at the deepest level, and to really see the fullness of our creator powers and capacities at the level of mind, at the level of consciousness, at the level of awareness. And really the only way to access those depths of genius are to go, we're talking deep within. So I know there's a lot of people being invited into the depth of their womb space right now for sacral clearing and womb activation and opening and expansion, revelation of self, choosing from the point of the sovereign self, directing our reality and our experience from the point of the sovereign self. And each of us, we talked about this. I am normally like the most, I feel like I probably exist from a very powerful place, but my preference is to be in that soft, still power. And there's a couple of times that I have had some frustrations because it is an invitation to align with cosmic law and cosmic life. And where are we living that fully in unification? And where are we not honoring life? And so I get my fire rises around, us being faithful stewards of our own beingness, our own environment, our own projects and creations, and everything in our sphere that we have been gifted to steward, that we have been called to steward, that we have given ourselves to steward, and being faithful to that. And then also on a global scale, are we taking care of ourselves? Ooh. Yes, thank you. So I just got a very powerful download and ear attunement. So I just wanted to be with that for a minute and honor it. So thank you. I love you. So with that, are we being faithful stewards and lovers and best friends to our bodies, to the wisdom and the innate intelligence of our bodies, of our minds, giving ourselves what we truly, deeply need to flourish and grow and expand? And is that intelligence translated through our daily actions, And so I think there's awareness being raised on many, many planes of existence and creation right now, and the value of that, and the connection to what it is that we each uniquely need to flourish. And so connecting to what that is for us, and not going with what the mainstream necessarily says that is, or the status quo says that is, but attuning to our own sovereignty, our own being, our own genius, our own intuition, and going, what do I need? And trusting what that is for us, and trusting that that we will support ourselves through whatever that is, even if it looks a little bit avant-garde, even if it looks a little bit against the grain, even if it's a little bit out there. So this is an invitation into full sovereign unification, I feel.
Yeah, it's super interesting. As I look around everywhere we go, the conversation is about what's happening outside of us. Oh, this is happening, and as a result of this, I feel this way. So what I'm seeing on a bigger scale, and to align with what you're saying about going inwards, taking care of our body, listening, doing what we need to do. This is such an expression on a big scale of how we show up every single day by outside influence, and how it, whether we let it or not, impact the way we feel about ourselves, the way we show up, how we treat others, how we treat ourselves, how we're treating the planet. And so it's really just a bigger expression of our default settings and how we show up. So the ones who are aligned, who are committed, who are showing up every single day with their purpose, with their gifts, with their truth, we are in a space of strength, and we're all being tested. And so with the testing of this all that I'm experiencing around, it's such an interesting perspective of shifting from fear to connection and empowerment, because fear is just a disconnection of self, which is going inwards. And the interesting thing about this is that I was in Bali about 4 months ago, and I was under this beautiful waterfall, and the waterfall was whispering to me, and I was like going up to the side, and I was with a friend of mine, and I was like, do you hear this? And she's like, no. And I'm like beside the waterfall, leaning up against it. And it was just this beautiful sound of love. But underneath of that was the message that anything and everything that is not organic, that is not pure, is going to destruct. And so I thought about that, and I went into universal laws of nature, and any time we try to manipulate or change or man makes something to our preference rather than the law of nature, it will not sustain, it will be broken. And we're seeing this not only with what's going on, we're being forced to stay into our homes, we're being forced to go inwards because something outside of us, we're being tested. But not only that, we've been seeing this with breast implants, we've been seeing this with all kinds of fabrications outside of us that are an illusion from going inwards and tapping into our true self. So this is happening on every single level.
Yes. And there's just so many stunning, exquisite, beautiful insights that you just had to share there. So one, the depth of, I just heard, drink from the well of divine nectar. Like, it is such an invitation to self-nourish. And I think that the grace in this and the gold in this is that the natural human tendency can be to jump outside of the self, to start taking action in the outer world, and to go out here and try to resolve everything out here. And this is an invitation in to go, this can be, life can be, creation can be, profound manifestation can be accessed through a depth of eloquent simplicity, leverage, and ease from within. But so many have not yet recognized that because they haven't had maybe necessarily the catalyst to go to those depths within, so that we can hear, I love it. So that we can hear the song of love, so that we can hear the voice of love, so that we can hear the harmonic transmission of pure, prolific, divine genius, intelligence, and operate in a new way from the place of the feminine guiding the masculine, which ultimately becomes an androgynous energy because it's such a simultaneous occurrence. The masculine and the feminine is happening simultaneously, but it is being led by the feminine wisdom. So the transmission is coming from a leaning back and then a flow. So I see the infinity symbol. So we're learning how to operate. There's a massive pole reversal that's happening on the planet. So we're learning how to operate in a different way. So instead of that natural, like, go out, get, do, achieve, be, in that masculine, I think we can all do that. You and I have had to be very powerful leaders, and this, I feel like that's where I started this conversation, because it's even, I have been unwinding some of my own tendency, because I have been a provider. That has been my quintessential role in this lifetime, is what value can I create for people, and how can I provide tools, resources, materials, transmissions, whatever that is. How can I be present to what other people need? And this has even been a gorgeous me stepping back and going, I'm going to let my creation fan me and feed me grapes. You know, it's time. And I will tell you what, I see a lot of everything in my reality is booming. And I am really, it's almost like all of what I have given for this lifetime and aeons is just flooding into me in the most gorgeous, surprising, like I could just even be moved to tears, because I'm so thankful at the beauty and the magnificence of it. And I'm just like, you know, after so many aeons of like regenerating and reconstructing my being and being so devoted, I mean, devoted beyond devoted to being a prolific source from moment to moment to moment, and recalibrating the field from moment to moment to moment without always necessarily seeing the immediate payoff of that, but just knowing that it was the right thing to do, and it was the guidance of my soul and my intuition and my expanded self. Like, this is what you are, this is what you do, and whether or not you see an immediate payback or, you know, whatever is it's not it's not the point. The point is love. The point is harmony. The point is creating a greater synchrony. And even if my transmission couldn't be fully received yet in the world, it could be received at the subtle layers of creation. And so I was doing all of that work there in that space and place. But I think that with everything that's happening now, we're all starting to realize that the true source of power, the true source of creation, the true source is us, and it is within. And so one of the evolutionary components to this that I see unfolding is we're starting to gain access to a lot of the powers that we had in the Atlantean times, you know, these ancient Egyptian intertechnological capacities, where it's like, I don't need to do anything in my outer world. I can make things move on my interplanes solely, because that is a key that is given to me. And it's almost like my being won't let me go out as much anymore. It's literally the generative capacity is accessed from the depth within, being able to move things with my consciousness and my mind, and being able to direct things. And to even, you know, it's love. It's just a greater harmony that has been achieved, and we all have this within. So this is an invitation to meet and discover those parts of ourselves, and to be with the fullness. So this is another piece of the going outside. Like, the question has come up for me so many times. I'm like, where are we going? What are we trying to get to?
We're trying to get away from ourselves.
And I'm like, the deepest invitation is that highest dimensional destiny timelines, highest optimized timelines, do not need to be constructed in the outer. They need to be received, accessed, and harmonized to within. And when that harmonic congruence occurs within, we line up with that reality in the physical world. And it's so fascinating to me, because when it's already here, all timelines, potentials, possibilities, they're all here. So we're being called to align to that perfected harmonic octave of pure paradise, of pure heaven within our own being. And then we see these massive shifts that take place in the outer. And it's fascinating to me that we know this about manifesting anything else. We know this about, if you want to manifest, what is the thing? You go in your inter realms, you cultivate that space, you be with that space, you let that space land in your womb, and you live there from the havingness and the beingness and the isness and the richness of that space. And then the outer reality shifts. You don't shift the outer reality and then suddenly the havingness occurs or the fulfillment occurs, but on a global scale, at the level of worldview, we seem to want to continue trying to change the world by hopping out here and trying to fix things, and in the leadership realm, it's been about, in different spaces and places, saving the world, making the world a better place. And like, how do we do this actually? Is that we make this, we save this. We don't need to save it. We just need to accept it for the perfection that it already inherently, innately is. We need to resonate there powerfully. And we need to connect to wholeness and completion here. That is how we, quote, save the world. And as each individual does this, it creates a grand harmonic synthesis and convergence and synchrony and expansion, where we move together as one unified whole. But that can only be accessed through, we'll take it a little hyper futuristic for a moment, because this is where my being naturally likes to play, because I see this so clearly, and it's just been in my own realm for so long. But I've always said the future is flow, and true global unification occurs by individuated sovereignty. And what sovereignty actually is not a pulling away from the self. It is not a separation. It is not some type of this person over here has sovereignty and this person over here doesn't have sovereignty, and I am now a separate. On some level, there's a fragmentation of consciousness. I'm a separate entity now from the whole. That is not a possibility. Sovereignty does not work that way. Sovereignty is unification with the self and with the all. Sovereignty is when I have united with all aspects of my inner being, all aspects of my world, in all dimensional facets of energy, creation, consciousness, nature, people, everything. When I am one, when I'm truly, when I am truly one, so it's total unification, total harmony at it's cellular, chemical, and cosmic, global cosmic levels. It's not segmenting out of a group from the self, because that's not possible. We're one interconnected energy. And so when each individual realizes true sovereignty, galactic sovereignty in their inter-realms, then we have global coherence. But it doesn't happen by trying to make unity happen out here from a space of disconnected sovereignty, separation, codependence, all of that.
Yes. Thank you. I just had to shift locations into a room to plug in my computer, as it's burning a lot of heat. This is not my room, but it's a very cute girly room of a dear friend of mine's daughter. So, because when we feel called to go live, we just gotta do it.
Yeah.
So going to what you were saying, you're talking about this globally, you're talking about yourself being tapped in. And what I really feel called to share right now is the breaking this down, because it's like, we talk about manifestation, we talk about what's going on around us. And for me personally, on my journey and what I see around myself and in the world is, well, how do we put this into action for people who aren't quite there yet? And so what I've seen as far as going inwards and that acceptance of self, that not running away from self, is healing trauma and having the courage to be self-aware enough to notice the tendencies to step outside of ourselves, to self-sabotage, to play small in our life with our purpose, our truth, our health, all of the things in our relationships, going outside of ourselves for validation, as you're mentioning, codependency. And all of the other manifestations of not going in really comes down to unhealed trauma. So if we break it down on more of a basic level, for me, for example, before I was really tapping into my manifestation powers and the gifts that the universe really wanted to call in for me, was I had to be still and be uncomfortable in that stillness. And this is what's happening everywhere right now, as we're being called to be uncomfortable if we tend to go outside of ourselves with the information, so that we're called to heal it, so that we can get more within to our true identity, our true self, a place of alignment, and operating from a place of oneness rather than that separation.
Yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And that's just as you're saying that, I see the, trauma being a representation of either great or minute fragmentation of the self. And I just see the coming in is an opportunity to fill in all those beautiful spaces and places with just pure honey, liquid light and gold, and just receive the love of all that we are. And the mama bear in me and the healer and the nourisher in me is just like, land in the feather bed of divine grace and allow yourself to receive. You are so loved. You are so supported. Everything is okay. And because we both of us have had to work through a depth of trauma. So we have extraordinary experience, lived depth experience in this area. And that is where we truly learn the love that we are and the love that is accessible to us through that deep, deep, deep surrender. So it's almost like we resist the reception of love. And there's a lot of, I feel like that is driven from survival. It's driven from all the programs and the patterning and all that we have been fed around who it is we need to be and what it is that we think we need to do to gain support, instead of simply allowing ourselves to receive it from the higher aspects of our own being. And once we really allow ourselves to go that deep, we start to unwind those layers and receive even more deeply and more deeply and more deeply, and go, so much of that's not even true. It's somebody else's story that I adopted along the way. And we realize what an unconditionally loving, gentle, graceful source we are. We discover our true self. We discover the power and the potency and the beauty and the gentleness and the sweetness and the bliss and the beauty and the warmth and the grace of that love, the more we melt into it. So it's like this gorgeous invitation to, there can be that resistance if we're used to trying to fragment, separate from the moment, to just melt deeply, letting go of all resistance, all tension, and let ourselves keep unwinding, keep relaxing, keep receiving, and go as deep as we need to go to receive these calibrations. And that's an ongoing journey, but really listening to our bodies and going, when do I need that? And knowing that the greatest power of manifestation, whether we're in a super high frequency, it's harmony. Equilibrium and harmony are the point of true power. So whether or not we're receiving from the well of divine grace and we are surrendered into the golden hands of all that is, and we're there and we're still, or we're in high-powered gamma flow and we are operating from super high, super symmetrical, mobile, expressive, electric masculine energy, we can receive and be supported in either of those places. So it's really valuable to just attune to what we actually uniquely desire and need, and what feels truly the most pleasurable for our own being, and to not neglect our own being, but to give ourselves what we truly need, and know that our higher self will support us in that place and space. And then eventually we come to realize that we are our higher self. So why would we ever not just be doing exactly precisely what we love and what feels good for us and what feels aligned for us and what feels creative and prolific and abundant and joyous and love-filled, and deepening and expanding into these spaces within our own being. But it's all happening here and now, and it's all happening within ourselves. We're not going anywhere. So it's kind of fascinating just from that eagle-eyed perspective to kind of look out and go, where do we actually think we're going? Like, I have to laugh about it sometimes. Because it's just right here, right now, and from the right here, right now. So the foundational, how do we create these changes? The foundation, it's the core. Everything else is kind of like I'm going to say it's a superficial layer because it's not the foundational piece. It's superficial, meaning like a layer on top of what the true depth is. The true depth, the true core is unified consciousness. And from the consciousness of omni-intelligence, everything unified to the mind of supra-intelligence, of source energy, all action that stems from that place will be generated from a space of true holism, of true organic. It's true organic, pure nature, like you were mentioning earlier. Mm-hmm. Anything else is going to be a fragmented action step taken out of separation or fear or anxiety or whatever consciousness, which means that the inherent foundation of the creation itself will have a crack in it. Whether we're creating a relationship or we're creating a business or we're creating a global systemic structure, whatever it is that we are creating, it has to come from that place of wholeness. So right now, we look at this as a global rebirth and a cleansing, truly. I mean, you know, and I said this years ago as well, and it may seem kind of like whatever is not in service to the divine will be transformed and regenerated and renewed and recycled at all levels of being. Whether that's in nature or in our physical vessels, it will happen because it is the way of nature herself. It is the way of the intelligence of the divine cosmic logos in divine design. That which is harmonious with the will of life will thrive, and that which is not will need to be transformed, recycled, or renewed in some way to return to its pure, holistic, natural, organic state. And from that point, it can truly thrive. So us returning to that within ourselves is the first foundational primary step to a global rebirthing, truly. And so we were coming internal to access these points of, so we get to see now, where is my trauma? Where is my fear? Where is my fragmentation? Where is my separation? Where do I get to be with myself and cultivate a deeper layer of knowingness, of trust, of inner abundance, of prosperity, of love, of peace, of harmony, of union with the self. And so this is an opportunity to really deepen and to really be with ourselves so that more of that revelation can come from within. Because ultimately, I mean, in a pure paradise, so many of these paradigms go away. Nobody needs a leader. We are our own leader. I think the primary responsibility of any leader is to guide others back into their own self-gnosis. Mm. Mm-hmm. And that's it. And so we're learning how to access that now.
Well, I feel too, not only that we can't hide anymore. We can't hide our truth. We can't hide the truth of what is. Everything is exploding around us because there is no more hiding. There is no more running away from ourselves because we are with ourselves. There is no more pretending things are okay because they're not. Yeah. There is no avoiding what needs to be moved into because we're being called to really move into the space of healing. Right. And so as you were mentioning that piece about coming into ourself and we're talking about trauma and all of that, the healing and the awakening is truly step one of everything to being in the right relationship, living and leading from the heart, because until we've truly awoken to the truth of who we are and who we're meant to be, which is love, abundance, infinite being of life, possibility, all of the things that we are, we're everything. Yeah. When we get there, we get it. And it's not an intellectual learning, whereas we have all these books on shelves and books that are being sold everywhere, but there's not a lot of embodiment happening with it. So when we go into the space of awakening and healing, you don't need to read the books because you just get it. It's in your body, it's in your cells, and you can experience that unconditional love with all beings. which is also the world, which is the planet, which is also the plant, which is also animals, which is also your food, which is also your body, which is also every single thing that you touch.
It is everything.
It's everything. And then from there, you're able to live and lead from the heart. And being a leader, I believe, is just truly about being who you really are in the world.
Yes.
And not holding back and doing that internal work and just being that. So as you were mentioning earlier about people stepping outside of themselves, or, oh, I want to fix the world, I need to heal this. That's another way to avoid dealing with what is going on internally. And I feel like many of us have done that because it's been a programming, a pattern, a thing that we think that we need to do. And I think the question here is, for everyone watching, is what is that thing that you may be doing that is causing you to maybe avoid dealing or going inwards to deepen your connection with yourself? What are those things that you are moving towards to numb, disconnect, distract, overcommit to, and take on as a way of not living in your soul's purpose, of not facing the truth? Because the truth is, once we do that internal work, everything becomes easy. Manifestation becomes easy because you can be a vibrational match. Whereas if we're holding on to guilt, shame, sadness, disconnection from self, from trauma, we cannot fully be in a vibrational match for our higher self, which is who we truly are, because we're outside of ourselves. So I'm really passionate about it because it's just like, this is the work. This is the work that we're all being called to do, regardless of our level of leadership. It doesn't matter what role you play. We all need to go inwards and do that work. And sometimes it's constant. Things happen. Or how are you showing up for what is arising within and giving yourself exactly what it is that you need? So just breaking that down. And when I watched this video the other day, I don't have TikTok. I don't even know what it is really, but someone posted it on social media and I saw it, and it was this dance between the truth and a lie, and it was represented as Trump and Obama. And I don't really talk politics because whatever, it's just another construct of power and all of those things. But it was really funny because Trump was hiding behind a curtain, and the guy who was playing both characters was Obama. He's like, I see you. And he's like, you don't see me. You don't know where I am. And all I could think of is, we cannot hide the truth anymore because everything is being shown. And when we go inwards with self, and when we're not able to go outside of ourselves and self-numb, self-soothe, and escape, we have to look at behaviors, ways of being, belief systems, and all of the parts of ourselves that we've maybe attached to as our personality from our past, from our imprints, from our belief systems that are not aligned with our true self. And from that place, having enough courage to look at it and then seek support to dissolve and integrate the trauma, and also clean up relationships, clean up your life, clean up your behavior. And this is how we can heighten our vibration and show up deeper. So on a bigger scale, this is what we're all being called to do.
Yes, 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 Mama. Well, and I think an exquisite piece of this too is the recognition that our true leadership, our true service is right here, right now. And how are we stewarding the moment that we are in? How are we stewarding what is right before us? How well are we relating to life as a living being in every here and now? And are we doing that with utmost honor and integrity? And so I one of the, I had to have a couple of challenging conversations this week. And I was like, it was just one of those, I was called to do it. And I'm just going to be the transmission, and what transpires, because some of the behaviors that I was witnessing were, what I realize is that so much of our society has desensitized itself to its true nature, to the sensitivity, to the subtle layers and energetics of our own being. And so there's this compounding on some levels of toxicity. And it's just, I can't bear witness to it and not speak into it any longer in any way, on any level, because it's a matter of, it's love at all levels of being. It's love in action. It's love personified. And, even in, there's a lot of beings. So the flip side of what you're saying is to go, some of the people who are being driven inward, who are so very externally focused and all, thinking that the grand change is going to be through what is done out here without having the full resolution in here. And another huge thing that I have seen, and brilliant, calibrated, tapped in, connected beings who are resonating at this level of consciousness, who have not yet learned how to be effective in the material plane and in the material world. And so finding that balance and supplying the tools that people need to be full, like truly holistic and fully integrated at all levels, within and without, because it's a whole spectrum that, the superpowers don't come unless you calibrate the whole field, and that comes through us being the powerhouse superhero of our own life. And that means stewardship within and without. And am I living in? That's how Liquid Nirvana was born. One, it's a bridge to support people with the full integration of this intelligence. And two, it's once that is achieved, and we're solidly connected to our own sovereign self and source and genius, and that can be accessed in an instant, and depending on what a being has created for themselves, that may take some time. It's like having a baby. You've got to regenerate yourself. And so, yes, we can open to that flow immediately, and those pivots can happen instantaneously, but then it's a question of the sustainability and the maintenance of that shift. And if a being is willing, there are plenty of tools to help them stay there, but it's about carrying that harmonic coherency forward from moment to moment to moment to moment, and being fully landed in it seamlessly. Liquid Nirvana. And that's being in the transience of that flow. And then, like you said, we're just being the living gnosis in the living transmission of all that we truly are. And so everybody is experiencing, and even as I say this, I think to my own self, who is everybody? Everybody is my consciousness projected out. So part of my responsibility as a leader is to create a world, and this is where I think the fundamental crux of change is going to take place, is that if I continue, and we know this with creation, if I continue to view a world, if I view a world that is filled with sovereign, empowered creators, that is what I'm going to create. If I view a world of disconnected people who are ill and with some kind of disharmony or dis-ease, that is what I will create a world of. And so this is even taking it to that next caliber and next level of depth. Instead of projecting and prophesying all of these, what are ultimately fallacies and stories of the mind into the world, we can harmonize to what is actually true and what is inevitable and what is our true destiny. And so this feels really important to bring through. There is one absolute reality that is omnipotent, omnipresent, eternal. It is what we are in our most expanded state. It is where we access true sovereignty, true freedom, true power, true emancipation of our will, our creative will, our I am will. And what is accessible to us in that place is awe-striking. It is profound. It is beautiful. It is beyond what is even conceivable from any point of fragmentation. And it is fun. And it is freeing, and it's so many things. And it requires the perfection of our own consciousness, like the literal perfecting of our own consciousness, and opening into that and receiving what is real and what is true, and cleansing and purifying all the patterns, all the programs, all the stories, all the genetics that are encoded in our being that resonate to anything other than that supersymmetrical chord of pure truth, that symphony of pure truth that expands infinitely.
Mm-hmm.
And so what we're seeing now is just a stage of that calibration as each of us goes through that within our own beingness. It's transient. It's not permanent. It won't last forever. We're going to, on the other side of this is a profound level of global play and global freedom like we've never seen before. You know, for how many years we're like, oh, I just want people to play with. You know, like, that's all I want. But in that, the foundational key to creating change is the change in perspective, and is you know, another thing that I said years ago was the ones who will change the world are the ones, the visionaries, the ones who see the world in its perfected state, actualized, and don't put it off into some future, or don't project some other type of story that is not actually true on top of the all-pervasive light of true wisdom, true reality, true gnosis. And so the more of us who empower that, and just go straight there, and this is how I train. This is the intensity of how I train. We go straight there because it's where it's all leading anyways. So why not just go straight home?
See, you can take the detour. You can take the detour. You can take the path of most resistance, which is where many of us have been programmed in the past to wear a badge of honor.
Totally. I'm like,
and it's like, do you know what I've been through to get here? It's like, okay, cool. And I used to be that person.
Totally.
And now I'm like, no, I just want to go straight there. So, but that's an interesting thing to reflect on as well, is the badge of honor that people wear when they are in the struggle. And it's a part of the story, which comes back to dissolving the illusions of who you are not and stepping more into who you are by having the courage to go deep and recalibrate and align.
Yes.
Because it doesn't have to be so hard. It's a story, and stories can change.
Yes. And that's the beauty of the immediacy of all of this, is that if you got one, if you're connected to it within yourself, would be the ideal way to go, because it's who we all are, so it's fully there for all of us. And if you've got a guide who really is attuned and is connected to their deep knowing, just go straight there. Boom, pivot, boom, pivot, boom, there, landed, whole new reality, whole new world. I'm going to stay here. I'm going to resonate here. It's easy, it's eloquent, it's simple, it's efficient, it's extraordinarily powerful for crystallizing our dream reality, because we just make these instantaneous pivots and we just stay there, and it's working on pure leverage. It's really fascinating to witness a lot of the stories that are occurring in the world right now.
I don't know why that's funny. That are occurring.
I know.
Projected. Let me tell you a story about you and the planet and why you should all be in fear all of the time. Everybody be in fear and run around grocery stores and elbow each other and take all of the toilet paper. Right. And let's talk about it all of the time. Let's isolate.
I'm just going to manifest some toilet paper, And that's what I have done. Because, if there's no toilet paper, I'm going to ask for my expanded intelligence to create some toilet paper out of the fabric of universal, infinite, generative power. If we are really sovereign, we know we have the capacity to do that, and we do it, and it works. And so if we're not, we're in scarcity, and we think that the supply of toilet paper is limited to what we see on the shelves. So again, it's an invitation to, are we staying anchored into our sovereignty and our creator powers and our abundance and all of that? Or are we like, oh my goodness, it's finite. It's not finite. It is infinite. It is infinite. We are infinite. And so, and we are deciding in every moment which story we are scripting, which story we are authoring, which story we are writing. And all of this, you know, I think one of the greatest things that we can do is send out prolific beams of truth into the field, into the world, into our moment-to-moment experience, into those around us, into the quantum avatar of beingness, and remind ourselves at all levels and layers of consciousness who and what we truly are. And everything harmonizes to that, but it's like, you know, what happens within, and yeah, ultimately there is no inside and outside, there's only one unified being, but our outside world does what we do. It's just all a feedback mechanism. And so if I go in and access peace, then everyone and everything in my world is in peace. If I am in chaos and turmoil, then all of a sudden my whole world is in chaos and turmoil. If I am in, fill in the blank, fill in the blank. So we have that power in every moment. In our most, the most powerful tool that we have access to is the power of decision.
Everything's a choice.
Yeah.
Every moment. And when we give that away
to anything,
to
even to a higher source,
yeah, then we are in control of a lot, and we're in control of nothing. The duality of you have control over everything and you have control over nothing, but the way we show up every day and how we give ourselves information, or how we process information, or who we are on a day-to-day basis is a choice. We can choose to be love, which is easy. That's the easy part, because that's what we are. Or we can choose to be all of the things that are not that. And yeah, it's just so much easier just to be in love and to be a vehicle of that. And it's really important too to notice that every day in every way, the way that we choose to show up through those choices that we have in every moment, we are constantly broadcasting that out to the world, whether we're on social media or just walking down the street. Our fear, our love, our joy, our decisions, our choice, that energetic field is going out and it is impacting others, because we are all one. So we have to choose wisely, because it's not only impacting you, it's impacting everyone.
Yes, thank you. You know, I just want to tune into this for a moment too. The depth. So you said something about having absolute control and having no control. And what I have discovered about power and control, which is such a fun and fascinating topic, is that the more that I surrender into the epic, grand, infinite nature of my true being and myself, and I be there in stillness, and I see myself, and I know myself, and I receive myself, and I observe myself, and I learn myself, and I explore and discover and know myself, the more supreme authority and power that I have in the entire collective landscape of being. And in that, so to surrender control is to gain ultimate power and control. So to surrender control of this self, to become the self, is to gain ultimate power and control, because our will must be harmonized to the I am will. And this is how choice points actually happen. Like, you know, I hate to say it, anyone has more or less choice power than anybody else, but the reality is beings with more self-awareness have more choice power because they're more self-aware. And so, you know, we've talked about this before. It's like, of course, I will always be loving to everything in my environment because honor is my primary value, and I get fierce about it.
Oh, I just saw that. Just like well, it's a choice of how you show up. Sometimes you can feel something deeply and choose otherwise, which is beautiful too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's part of the embracing of, this is what my dance with my own self has been. Like any moment where I have shifted out of alignment with that, the frequency of it. Because I'm like, like,
yes,
staying in it. And I'm like, I also know that I'm not feeling it fully right now. So what I need to do is go and receive and reorient the field. And I'm going to like douse everything in divine love. And I'm going to create a correction in the field.
Beautiful.
So it's like I immediately go into that space of total resolution for the self. Because I don't feel at peace with my being until I do that. So it's immediate. And I know when I'm not in that space, and that unto itself, my goodness, a whole year of my life I spent being with that in the present moment, like ninja in the field, like prolific love from the most authentic, divinely connected quantum space. And in the moments when I wasn't fully connected, I just realized it right away and would go and do a reorientation in the field, harmonizing all back into the light of the one for the highest well-being of all, and the eternal now and always, throughout all space, times, dimensions, realities of energy, consciousness, creation. And I would just go there and I would reorient that until I felt it, the harmonic come back in my being. But being that, and then, and that's it's a natural thing that we all access that in our being, but it's like, I have more choice than a piece of wood. And it's not because a piece of wood is not energy and consciousness and creation and self. It's just that it is less aware of itself than I am of myself. And so it is more malleable to me. And so beings with a higher level of self-awareness, other beings become more malleable to that consciousness. So and we also have an exorbitant amount of responsibility because we've got to steward the whole thing. So it's like with great responsibility comes great power, comes grand decisions, because at that point, no one else is deciding.
So one thing that I want to bring up that came to me a little bit earlier that I feel fits well with this, and also something that you shared earlier, was you were mentioning about having a difficult conversation this week, or having a couple. And I find that really interesting. So how I've operated in the past is, have the difficult conversations, do it. It's great. I need to share with people so that they're more conscious, like that obligation of I got to do it.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been practicing as of like October or so was I've noticed that although I am here to be a vehicle of light to awaken people and help them dissolve trauma and barriers that are preventing them from being who they really are in the world, and yes, making an impact in the world, because I work with the light workers, is I am also not here to leak my energy in a way that's not fully aligned with, leak my energy in a way that it gives my energy away. So what I mean by that is, so you're mentioning difficult conversations, and I feel like this is very earthly, like very, because we're up here, we're here, and I can go there with you. And I always like to bring it back to earth as well, so that it's like, okay, how do we put this into action? How do we practice? What is a conversation we can have around this? Is the conversations with people who may be reactive, maybe on default, maybe not operating as their best selves, and the difference between sharing truth with someone to activate a conversation to go deeper and to do that work, because it is, being of service, but it also is like you're in it with them. You can enter that. And then there's the space of not entertaining something that, or someone that's not operating their highest self, which is a practice that I've been practicing for the last little bit, is when a conflict comes up or something happens that I can see a person's triggered or going through their own thing, instead of going in it and trying to resolve it or give tools. Instead, I step back and allow that person to sort it out on their own so that they can have their own learning, their own lesson, their own interrupted process of their own beingness. And it's interestingly enough that I've experienced a few of these moments in the past few months where instead of engaging and operating from a place of push back or trying to educate or share or give tools or insight, instead just not engaging and allowing that person to go through their entire process. And the reason I share this, and this is where it's going back to the root of things, is until we're able to truly feel, experience, and go to the root of something and see it all unfolds and be with self without an external person, external anything that's giving us some sort of feedback, we are not going to know our truth. We are not going to repattern and shift. So as far as interactions with people, I've had a few of those in the past few months of non-engagement, of I don't like the word ghosting because I don't agree with it, but actually just non-engagement to allow that person to unfold without taking my energy into the space where it's unnecessary, because that in a space, especially with healers, I say healers because some people love that word, some people don't, whatever your call is to do in the world, whoever you are, is it can be a default to go in and try to save or fix something right away, when in fact that can actually be doing more harm than good. So I wanted to share that because it's a practice that I've been practicing, and I found it's very effective.
Oh, totally. So because you're like, you just draw yourself in from that space, and it's truly because anything else would be enabling ultimately. And so,
and as leaders, we can tend to want to insert and use all of these tools, and sometimes tools are unnecessary. Sometimes just the stepping back and allowing is the tool itself.
Yes, that's so. Yes. Like, yes. I find that, well, it's so situational, because for me, it's almost been a reversal of that, because I'm so used to being, you're a sovereign creator, you have agency and autonomy in your realm, in your field. And then I would step back and allow, and just, allow them to have their own process. And this whole past year and a half has been about me activating and utilizing my voice. So I've had, and truthfully, if it weren't in my direct experience, I would not engage or entertain it at all. And frankly, I would walk away entirely. Okay. That's my, because that's just how, I'm all about like being pristine and impeccable in my integrity with what I allow and don't allow into my experience. And I have done that deep work to align with pristine consciousness in my own being. And so I will only allow myself to be surrounded by those energetics. And if it's not that, that's okay. And it's beautiful, and it's on its own trajectory. It's in its own orbit. I just orbit in a different direction. But when it's in my immediate sphere,
right,
and there have been commitments that have been made that impact multiple people,
right, that's different.
Totally. Then you've got to go, okay, well, that's great that you want to do this, but it's like you can't just have a baby and then not take care of the baby. And so we need to like...
Well, let's get clear on what I was really saying here.
Well, that's just a very clear example of what I mean, where it can be like, oh, well, I'm just going to step away from this thing that I've committed to stewarding. And it's, it's dynamic. I'm telling you, to be like calibrated and all, it's a dynamic. So yes, there is that ultimate freedom and that liberation being open to, and in that flow and all of that. And we've got to get laser lucid clear on what our commitments are, what we have committed to. And we've got to carve out beautiful sacred spaces to have dates with our creations on a regular basis, and to steward them, and to love them, and to listen to them, and cultivate them, and to honor all beings that are involved in that creative process with us. We can't just like dip. And so I've had to have a couple of conversations about that, you know, and I imagine that sometimes I'm put in those situations to just bring that kind of, I try to do it in the most loving, playful, real, grounded way. And I guess utilizing having a child as an example of what that looks like, because we can get caught up in energetic dynamics and all of that. And it's like, yes, and there's sometimes when we're just going to have to literally move out of the way and do what's better, you know, what's in the highest and best for.
Yeah. So what I was referring to mainly is more of a reaction, or someone being at war with themselves, but you're in the middle and you're like, oh, this isn't for me. I'm just gonna go from here to over here. Let you sort out that war, because this happens all the time in relationships, especially as find as like an activator, a transmitter, or someone as in a space of healing and supporting, is sometimes we can get caught up in other people's wars with themselves, and so it's like, do you know, it's like taking someone else's garbage out for them, and also getting trash all over yourself, and maybe a skin infection and all this other stuff that's going on from being in the war, and all these like wounds that you're just like, I was just there to help, you know, I was just there. It's like, it's about taking a step out and allowing someone to let their tornado to settle on their own, and not be in the fire if it's not your fire, not being in the trash if it's not your trash. And let's be honest, we've all had moments. I know for me, this last year, I moved through a few big pieces. It was about a year ago. It was a year ago, Solara. Do you remember that conversation?
Oh, like which one?
We've had so many, but I was going through a big shift in awareness around intimate relationship, and I had this moment of, oh wow, I've been in the war of someone else's war with themselves, and having to step out and having those wounds, or those wounds that I had to then heal and deal with that. And we're talking a little bit, this is a good gateway into codependent relationships and being in relationships that are not healthy. And as someone who's an empath, or someone who's open and can feel a lot within people, and as for me, feeling and knowing people's highest selves. Like when I say highest selves, I mean best version of who they really are at their core versus their reality and how they're showing up. There's a gap there often. And in the past, I would connect with their highest best self, whereas in reality may not be operationally in that space. And so coming out of that, really having to have awareness of a pattern that I didn't know that I was in. I thought I was out, and realizing that, and being on a space of detoxification from being in relationship with an intimate relationship for a year. And it's been a year.
Yeah.
As of 2 weeks from now, it will be a whole year I've been single. Wow. I mean, like with self, which is so nice.
Oh my God, it's the best ever. I'm like, if it doesn't resonate like this resonates, then we can be friends.
I know. And it's such a beautiful space. And, but the thing is, it's like taking out someone else's trash, being in the crossfire. And I share this, and I think it's important to share, because many of us who are plugged into this conversation right now, you can relate at some point or another, being in a relationship where you're like, oh, this person will change, or you know, if I help a little bit more, if I do more of this, or it's not them, it's me, and continuing to work on yourself, but then finding that you are actually not where you're supposed to be, and by being in it, you may be self-harming. So that is a pattern that I woke up to, and I really had to make a strict rule with myself of no relationship for a year. And so it's almost been a year.
Wow. Yeah. I think, well, you know, I mean, we experienced some parallel things this year.
Yeah, we did.
That was a stark awakening in two pronounced situations this past year, and one primarily being my engagement. And I realized where I was choosing to opt into situations for mastery training. Literally, I was putting myself into the fire Like I would have the parallel realization, like here's all the shadow that's operating in that space, and here's all the divinity that's operating in that space. Are you going to go in, and are you going to see how masterful you can be at holding that plane? Because that's ultimately what my being was seeking. Can I hold the plane of God view, of God consciousness, and therefore access the most powerful capacity that I have to shift reality? But in that, I realized where I was sacrificing
divine assignment,
my own joy, my own health, my own well-being. I was allowing people to siphon my light instead of accessing their own nectar from within. And I made a firm declaration to myself, and I'm still kind of culling the garden. There's just still a little bit of, there's still some weeds hanging out in the garden. But did some major pruning this year around, I will only choose to play with those beings who are sovereignly connected to their own source within. And if it is not that, then I'm just not even going to entertain it or enter into it or engage it in any way. And the moment that I notice it or become aware that that's what's happening, that someone's trying to kind of like jump in without, I'm, from the core of, I love you and you got this. You got this. You got this. I trust you to yourself. And I'm gonna take a twirl into this dimension.
And I'm gonna go this way.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like another reason why it's so beautiful that we're sharing this is because as people who are sharing and teaching and supporting others, it can be challenging for us sometimes to speak what we're going through because we're on a mission. We're like, oh, I'm masterful. I got this. It's not so bad. I got this. I'm becoming a master at this. And so it's like this illusion of perfection when we're actually in a space of maybe get challenged or not seeing things clearly. And this is why it's so important to have sisters and brothers to be like, girl, guy, what you doing? I remember I was too like, girl. And I remember seeing you in a space and like, I've never seen you that way. And I had this feeling, but it was incongruent with how you were showing up. And so, and I'm sure with me as well back then too, right? So it's like being able to hold space and to connect and support is so powerful.
Yeah. Well, it's like, you're like, you don't even look like yourself.
Yeah.
And those are the moments. And it's so true through that whole orbit. I'm like, where am I? I was always just letting my soul be siphoned. And I just made a firm and I mean, I think that I had a lot of guilt around it. I had a lot of empathy for it. And I had to really cleanse a lot of that out of my own, and I still continue to see where I allow that in little ways, where I notice that it's happening up front and I don't just do something right away, where I try to give a being the benefit of the doubt because I freaking love. And I will tell you, like, that has been, I love and I know who we are and I know what is accessible to us. And I have carried that through this lifetime. And it's so interesting. It has been the ultimate heartbreak and the ultimate empowerment and love of this lifetime to experience the duality of that coin, to see someone not fully having access to that within themselves, but getting to a place enough within my own being where I'm like, I know that's who you are and you will find it with or without my specific presence in your world.
I love that.
Liberate.
I love that. And I have the same tendency as you as far as loving beyond the circumstance and giving benefit of the doubt and all of that. And the gift of it is that people can show up with a clean slate and you're a vehicle for opening that up. And many people in the process will show up differently because maybe they have that awareness to make a shift. And that's a really beautiful gift. and also the being in a space of being completely real as you're experiencing it with that person
Yes.
is also a gift. And so when I stepped out of a relationship a year ago, it was very difficult for me, and I went through so many different moments in time of just like, wow, I have so much love for that person, so much love, like light years of love, right? And wow, I hope that person is so happy, like genuinely so happy, so much love. And I know on a deep level, I will not be in a space with that person, but I actually am like sending love, because I'm like, oh, like that being has so much like love within, right? And I think that that's a beautiful space of being, is knowing that we're all on our journey, we're all doing our best, even when it doesn't feel like it when we witness others, but we're all helping each other go home. As you were saying, we can make it the long way, or we can go right there. And some of us have done the work, the internal work, and we're there, we're going there, we're in it, we're feeling it, and others are taking a longer path. And if we can support them into feeling that love, feeling that acceptance, maybe that they haven't had in the past, and giving them the benefit of the doubt, that also is such a gift to move them forward. So it's all a gift. It's all a part of the gift.
Yeah, well, it is. And I think in different cycles and stages, and you know, whatever it is that we're uniquely experiencing in our reality. I mean, one of the things that I learned how to do was communicate frankly, clearly, and with love around just, these are the behaviors that I see, and I honor you fully, and I honor me fully. This is what is acceptable, and as it pertains to how it is impacting my reality. And this is what is not acceptable to me as it is impacting. So these are the shifts that need to be made, and being a lot more firm about those things. Because I just, you know, I know that my will is so connected to divine will that whatever it is that I'm requesting is of the utmost highest order. For everybody. And I know that's like a pretty profound statement. Like really?
You're like, I know best.
Well, I know what is, I would say what is in the highest alignment with health, with love, and with truly what is, yes, what is in the highest and best good for all beings. And you know, and helping orient people, because I don't think that people get that far out of alignment if they're connected to themselves, and they're connected to their joy, and they're connected to their passion, they're connected to their health, they're connected to their source, you know. So like my thing is always that's always my go-to. Like it's sovereignty that creates sovereign unity. And I'm like, I'm going to be over here in this, and I'm not engaging any codependent dynamics on any level. Not happening. I love you. I trust you to yourself, to your reality, to your world, to be convened when you feel happy. Like, you know, and, you know, even if you're not, like, I'll be with you fully in the space of whatever space you're in. But I'm not going to take it on. I'm not going to be responsible for it. And I'm not going to fix it, change it, solve it, heal it, whatever. I'm just going to, so a big part of that too has been non-judgment, non-resistance, non-attachment, and being fully present. I'm going to stay connected to my true essence of joy and excitement, and just literally being turned on by what I am and my capacity to create, and the infinite nature of being, because what the hell else is there to be doing except being turned on by the epicness that we all are, you know, ruminating on epiphanies and revelations and ways to create awesome, amazing things in the world, and invite people into those awesome, amazing containers, which I call paradise. It's like, how can I always be optimizing my own personal paradise, my own health, my own well-being, my own environment, my own connections, you know, all of that. And those who want to play with me and dance with me in that realm, let's go there. Let's create gorgeous, stunning, Epicurean, enchanting, magical, life-giving, abundance-generating experiences. And I'm not really willing to play in any other dimension anymore at all. And so when I say I'm clearing out the weeds, I mean like I'm not even getting out of the space of helping anymore. Like I don't feel called to be a helper. I feel called to be a co-creator, a co-designer. Yes. I don't feel called to be anybody's helper because I believe that we all have this innate intelligence within us. And so I'm holding everybody there. And I'm no longer entertaining any realities or paradigms of help, save, fix, solve, codependent. You are not source. I'm like, you're source. You got it. You know? And I'm just I'm just holding that vision and that intention that allows me to disconnect with much more ease. But I did have to cleanse through a lot of guilt and savior patterning and programming and all of that. And now I'm just like,
here we are.
Yeah, let's play. And like
here we are. Let's
just do what we actually came here to do, which is to create and play and enjoy and emerge novelly. And all of these things. So yeah, that's kind of after we just went through all of that, and my baby's like, oh, here we go. This is your natural space to play. Here we go. We have finally come home to this is where I want to play. This is why I almost like don't want to entertain a lot of the stories that are happening globally because I'm so aware that that's precisely what it is.
And so that's the message of the day is play. So all that stuff that we went through, the codependency, the news, the outer, inner, fear, doubt, all of the things. We covered so many things today, but the real message here is play, because everything else is just an illusion, and being internal and showing up as who you really are is how you can really show up and play.
Truth, play, paradise, divinity. We all know what the diamond octave is. If you wanted to go into a whole other realm, this is where I play. All of everything that we just addressed in back here is all of that old energetic being cleared out, and this is what we are stepping into. And anything that is not this is a story that is not aligned to truth, and it will eventually be recycled. It has a expiration date on it. So let's just usher into the new. Let's just usher into the new and create and play and have fun and just get on it.
And on that note, you get to choose how long you marinate in anything that is not it. Because if it's not this, which this is pretty awesome right now. My current reality is pretty awesome. Yeah. It's something better. So anything that's shifting, anything that, if there's any fear of letting go of change, whatever you are attached to or think that you're attached to that you can't live without or that needs to change, if it's not this, it's something better, and something better is just around the corner when you tune inwards and you play. So let's play, my friends.
I love you. I love you. I love you.
Love you too. Mwah, mwah, mwah.